Make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there.
I am done talking about the Sixers. They were out 2 rounds ago.
Thanks for tuning back to the Whistle Throwers podcast. This is Jack Mubarak, joined by
Jack Slaymaker.
And Aiden Dudzinski.
And big news in the golf world. I didn't think we'd be talking about it when the NBA Finals are going on, but the LIV Tour and the PGA have merged, so they're now one. And this is completely out of left field for me. I didn't expect this. I can't really speak too much on this issue because I'm not really educated, but I know that there was a lot of controversy, especially with the Saudi Arabian funds for that league.
Yeah.
So, and obviously a lot of guys left the PGA expecting to be in the LIV Tour, and now they're all under one net now. So
yeah, I mean, the hypocrisy of the PGA Tour is pretty crazy here because, you know, back when this all began, PGA Tour banned anyone that left for the LIV Golf Tour, and they pretty much told the people that stayed, they said, you need to reject those 9-figure contracts with the LIV Tour because you're a bad person if you do. They told those players to, like, pretty much personally attack the players that left for the LIV Golf Tour. I mean, it's pretty plain and simple, and it's pretty well documented. And then now we're sitting here, and the PGA Tour pretty much caved to them, and took billions of dollars pretty much. They're doing exactly what they told their athletes not to do, and they screwed them now because they're not going to get those insane number contracts. You did. You know what I mean? And it's really just a bad look on the PGA Tour.
they all should have took the money then.
Pretty much.
Like, honestly,
yeah.
I was one of the people that was like, I just think it's shady and, like, I wouldn't do it. Now, it's like, yeah, they should have. Like, the PGA Tour completely did what they told them not to do, so screw it. You should have done it back then.
Yeah, it's totally a slap in the face to 2 specific players, Tiger Woods and Rory McIlroy.
Yeah.
McIlroy's been the biggest defender of PGA from day one, and he's taken a lot of crap from Bryson DeChambeau and Phil Mickelson in particular, and he stood by PGA. And what it seemed like PGA just kind of did this without telling any of their stars.
Right, yeah, that's the other thing.
And to me, that's about the worst thing you could do. You have to at least communicate to the players and say, hey, this is an offer that's on the table. What do you guys think?
Right.
We know that you guys have defended us all the way through. We know that we're big rivals with them, but this is how this could help everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's A, B, and C, why we should do this. You guys need to get back to us, but we think this will be beneficial to everyone. And instead of just pulling out the rug and doing it pretty much in secret.
Yeah, I mean, it's
and
a really
it
terrible
seemed like it pissed off a lot of PGA players, which now to be on the same course with DeChambeau and Mickelson, look, it will be fun to watch.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
It's going to be interesting to see how this all works out, but I totally understand from their standpoint why they feel like that they totally got screwed out of any sort of conversation.
Yeah, agreed. And, like, I think that golf will benefit from this in the end because I think, like what you said, like, I think there are going to be more rivalries and, like, the golf will just be more entertaining.
I mean, look, at the end of the day, the reason the PGA did this is for money.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
The more money that's in the sport is better. Now, there's going to be a lot of arguments about where this money is coming from and why that's not good for the sport. I do understand why the PGA felt like this had to be done.
Yes.
Because they will be getting the money from LIV. They'll be getting more advertising from around the globe rather than just in North America, which is a lot of where the PGA was.
Right.
Even though they have players from England and all these other places. But you do have to wonder, as you said, why you're doing this now instead of right away.
Yeah, and I think this is an important note, like, just to finish it, too. Like, we are not going to lose the U.S. Open, British Open, the Masters. We're not going to lose any of that. So it's the only one major that will change is the PGA Championship, which will pretty much just be whatever the league championship is. So we're not going to lose anything in the golf world. It's pretty much just going to be under a new league.
Yeah.
I think you guys hit it perfectly, so now we could talk into the NBA Finals. So a lot has happened since we were giving our predictions before the series started. After Game 1, it kind of looked like the Nuggets were going to cruise through the series, and the Nuggets in Game 2 then lost home court advantage. So I said that the Nuggets were going to cruise through the series in 5 or 6, but I said it would most likely be in 5. Now, I kind of see a Game 7 brewing, but I don't know who is going to win. Like, I can't pull a finger on it yet.
I still don't see Game 7.
Really?
I don't. No. And here's why. The Heat shooting was still so streaky in Game 2 after just not showing up in Game 1. They need to put together an entire game of great shooting, and I just don't feel like they can do that against the Nuggets.
Thing is, they're the only team that I could think of that could have like that bad of a shooting performance one game and then come out and have a great shooting performance like the next game, like nothing happened. Like Max Strus went from like 0 for 10 to like 4 for 7 from 3. Like, and this was like in the first quarter alone. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know any other group of guys that are like that resilient to just go out there, especially Duncan Robinson. Like when the game in the late fourth quarter, it looked like the Nuggets were going to take it.
Yeah.
He has 10 points in 2 minutes and like he was terrible in game 1.
Yeah.
And he wasn't even being a shooter. He was driving, he was facilitating. He had a bunch of great screens that got like Gabe Vincent open. Like I didn't think he had that in his repertoire. And honestly, it's more than some superstars have done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, a few that I can name, Joel Embiid. I haven't seen him
We're still doing this.
Yeah, we are.
Can we stop? No, it's scheduled at this point. I am done talking about the Sixers. They were out 2 rounds ago.
Yeah, I'm done.
Keep talking about the Sixers. Why not bring up the Lakers and Warriors or any of those other teams?
All right, yeah. Duncan Robinson did way better than D'Angelo Russell. Yes. Anthony Davis. Joel Embiid, the MVP for sure. James Harden, but
I'm just saying,
I've never seen a guy.
No,
I get it.
That's
but
it.
I need to explain to you guys that Joel Embiid is not a winner.
I want to talk about the finals.
Yeah, I want to just talk about
the finals.
Here's the thing with the Heat. Like, I think the main takeaway here is Jimmy Butler hasn't had a Jimmy Butler game yet. He has not taken over. Yeah, but I mean, we're talking 4 quarters domination that we've seen from Jimmy Butler in the playoffs. He hasn't really shot the ball well, but I think that's bound to change, in my opinion, and especially going home with this momentum because, again, you haven't got that. Your other guys have semi-performed, I feel like. I don't think that the bench has played as well as it could. You know, I shouldn't say bench. I should just say role players. Like, Gabe Vincent had a great game, too. He was their leading scorer with 23. And then, you know, Bam had 21, which I think if you get 21 from Bam, you're happy every single night. You're taking that from every day, especially with the defense he plays. And I know Jokic had 41, but, you know, when the guys around Jokic played that poorly in game 2, that's a team effort. You know, you can't just really look at one guy. That's a team effort. And Bam is a part of that, you know, in terms of his length and his athleticism, his rebounding. I mean, he's just really a force. He moves guys. That's huge because when he's doing that, it's team rebounding. You know what I mean? And I think that's the best way to rebound.
Yeah, I want to touch on what you said about Jokic's scoring. I actually think that's a big reason why the Nuggets' offense was slowed down.
Agreed.
When you look at game 1, he only scored 27 points, but he had 14 assists.
Yeah.
Which meant that he was able to hit the ball to everyone. What I think the Heat did really well in this game, which just isn't being touched on a lot, is that they spread out the defense, would suck in on Jokic, and shut off all of his passing lanes.
Yeah.
Which is why he had 5 turnovers and only 4 assists. I think the Heat are okay with him putting up 41 points if nobody else around him is doing anything.
Right.
Yeah, they were shooting great, and like they were literally trading threes for like Jokic backing down Bam for a 2-pointer.
Exactly.
That's why they won.
They only had 11 3-pointers compared to the Heat's 17.
Yep.
So even when the Heat weren't shooting as well in the second and third quarter, that's why they were able to stay in it enough to come back in the fourth and have that great start in the first.
Yeah, right.
So, and that's why Jokic did so well in the second, because I think that they sort of realized, hey, the only way that we're going to stay in this is to let Jokic do his thing, but make sure nobody else can shoot a 3.
Right, yeah. That's a key, I think. And I know Spoelstra had that weird exchange post-game, but I think he's just bluffing, honestly, with that. Like, I think that is their game plan. I think they're comfortable with that. Like, and especially now, you know, you saw he dropped 41 points. I mean, Jokic played as well as he could, flat out. 41, he had all those rebounds, but he was kicking out and guys were missing shots. Like, I think his 4 assist number wasn't a lack of him passing the ball. I think it was just him passing the ball and the guys weren't making their shots.
But he also had 5 turnovers, which doesn't usually happen either. So that's why I'm also saying, though, that they're just going to spread out the defense.
Exactly,
and sort of go one-on-one. And because when they were trying to triple team every time, it was stopping him from scoring points. But everyone
went off. Like,
open.
Murray had a lot of open looks. And like that's why it feeds into your point, because when he's passing out, the Heat are quick to adjust. Like, they just play insane team defense. It's crazy how Spoelstra has all of them, like, pretty much playing as one player, it seems like. You know what I mean? Like, they move as a team, as, like, one defense. And it's really crazy to see because Jokic is kicking out. They're either on those passes or the guys are getting them and they're putting up tough shots and they're not making them.
I think it's a really important point to point out that Spoelstra started as an intern in the video department. This is a film guy.
Yeah, right.
This guy is going to analyze right after the game ends to figure out how to beat you.
Yeah.
So when he says all this stuff where he's bluffing or whatnot, he probably is. But he probably knows that the moment that he's done with those interviews, he's going to go right back into the film room and figure out what to do next.
Yeah, right. Because you know now they're saying, all right, how can we do what we did off of Jokic and then hold him to under 40 points? Because you still won the game on the road. That's their goal now. Yeah. Hold Jokic to under 40. Yeah. Because you're in a great spot if you are continuing to do what you do off ball Jokic.
Yeah.
And he needs to get a lot of credit for putting in Kevin Love, especially when he didn't play at all game 1.
Yeah.
Starting him game 2. Like, that's a pretty big risk, honestly. Like, I don't know how much minutes he was getting in the previous rounds, but I can't imagine it was that much. And for him to just go from being completely benched to starting, it opens so much room for the guys to, make all their shots. And I think that's a big reason why they did, because they had a stretch 4, and they had a little bit more size that they didn't have in the last game.
Yeah. So I'm wondering real quick too, like, is it widely accepted that Kevin Love is a Hall of Famer? Like, I believe he's a Hall of Famer. I believe he's straight up a Hall of Famer.
I don't think he is, but I think he will get in.
I mean, I'm saying though, like, look at the numbers he put up in Minnesota, and then look what he did after Minnesota, where he contributed. Now this is going to be his second or third ring.
Yeah.
Barring.
If they win. I think it's tough because he was so great in Minnesota, and he's obviously the third guy on Cleveland.
Yeah.
And the issue was, to me, his prime was so short because after LeBron left, he could have been that type of player, but he just kept getting hurt.
Yeah.
I mean...
And playing with that, horrid team.
We've talked about this before. The NBA Hall of Fame is so much different because it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. It's not NBA, so there's a lot of guys that make it that I don't know.
And his college career might be...
Right, exactly. I personally don't think that Alonzo Mourning should be a Hall of Famer, and he is.
Yeah.
Because he did a lot in college for sure, which obviously plays into it. But to me, he didn't have the type of NBA career that would make him a Hall of Famer, but he's still in anyway.
Yeah.
So chances are Kevin Love will be. Now, should he be? I don't know. To me, he's not up there. Like, I feel like there's tiers of Hall of Famers.
Yeah.
I would say Tony Kukoc is bottom.
That's probably Kevin Love, too.
I think Kevin Love would be somewhere between Mourning and Kukoc. Like, I'm not putting up with, Kobe Hall of Fame, Jordan Hall of Fame. But I think he's probably going to make it, but not in that same, a lower tier Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
I agree with that. I think he's going to make it.
Now that you brought up the college debate, I think Carmelo Anthony's 100%
going in the Hall of Fame.
And Olympics.
Yeah.
His Olympic career is insane.
I think this is crazy, but I think Danny Green even has a chance of getting in, as weird as that sounds. 3 rings, 3 different teams, great.
And he did win a national championship in college, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. See, the issue to me is
I'm not saying he should, but
I know.
It's the easiest sport to get in.
Honestly, I don't know if... I don't think the NBA or the Basketball Hall of Fame would stoop that low, to be honest.
Yeah, I don't either.
Yeah.
They go low, but not that
I think
low. And that's not a diss on them, it's just I think
JJ Redick has a much better chance if we're talking about 3-point shooters.
Yeah, right.
But the rings.
Yeah, the rings does... that's where I'm maybe.
Yeah.
3 different teams.
I know. It's just hard for me because, yes, he won 4 rings if you include his college one, but, he was never the best shooter for his team. Even as a 3-point specialist, I would never be I'm going to kick it out to Danny Green because I feel like he can make the game.
Yeah.
The same way that I would feel about Ray Allen or Curry, any of those 3-point shooters. I just don't feel the same about them, and that's why I think it's hard for me to just adjust to... I understand that the NBA is now a 3-point shooting game, but to me, you still have to have a clutch levels 3 in you to be a Hall of Famer, and I just don't feel that way about Danny Green.
And I mean, I don't think Robert Horry is in the Hall of Fame, and he had 7 rings. So, I don't think that Danny Green's rings are enough to boost him into a Hall of Fame spot.
So, we were just talking about Kevin Love. So, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Tyler Hero's not cleared to play Game 3.
Yeah, I think Hero said that he doesn't even know if he wants to come back because he didn't want to, screw up the rhythm of the offense.
It's, tough because, you're potentially coming back for 4 games if you even decide to come back, and, they're doing fine without you.
Was he out in Game 1? Is that when he got hurt? Game 1 of the first round?
Yeah.
So, he's now been out for basically 3 series.
And they don't have time for him to, figure his game out.
They don't. The thing is, I do feel like they're still missing something with him not playing. And I understand that he wants to say that throw off the rhythm. if you really put him in off the bench for 15 minutes, how much are you really screwing up the rhythm of the game? With how much their bench struggled until Duncan Robinson woke up in the fourth and Kyle Rowley. Besides that, they're missing that.
You're kind of right, actually, because,
scorer.
dude, you look at their bench, Zeller got 8 minutes, and, Haywood Highsmith got 6 minutes, so, he could technically fill that role for at least Haywood Highsmith, and, Duncan Robinson got 17 minutes.
Yeah.
I think you could take, 2 minutes away from him.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. If you put Hero in for 10 to 15 minutes in clutch situations at, the end of the second period, maybe the beginning of the third, give someone some rest coming out the half, I don't think you're really messing with the rhythm, and I feel like you're helping your team. Plus, you're giving your starters rest for the fourth quarter when it comes into clutch time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he can ease his way back in, so if there is a Game 7, he could play and feel comfortable playing.
My only fear with him, too, though, getting minutes, is defense. I think he's going to get targeted. You know what I mean? So
it can't be more than Duncan Robinson gets targeted.
Yeah, that's
kind of true.
I love what Strus, Gibson, and Duncan have done. They're not great defenders.
Yeah.
It works because of the way that Miami switched up their defense, but they got destroyed in game
that's true.
one.
Yeah.
And I feel like I really like Malone as a coach as well.
Yeah, I do too.
I understand all these coaches are getting hired now, and I do think that a lot of these teams have improved. I think that the Pistons hiring Monty Williams going to the Pistons, that's going to help a lot. But I feel like two of the best coaches are already on the Nuggets and Heat, and I feel like anything that other teams does is just not going to compare.
Yeah.
So I do think that Michael Malone will come up with a much better game plan than they had in Game 2, just because they didn't know that the Heat were going to do that against the Nuggets.
Right, yeah. And I completely agree with you. And actually, I wanted the Sixers to hire Spoelstra's assistant because, like what you said, I think those are two coaches where you just pick off the tree. No. You know what I mean? Because we see it in the NFL and NBA all the time where, you come from a great coach. There's lineage there, you know what I mean? And it doesn't work all the time. Yeah. So, you can't just bank on that. But I feel like with a guy like Spoelstra, and his assistant has been there for 8 years and that's, you learn a lot more than just X's and O's. That's culture building. You know, the Heat have been pretty much perennial for they didn't skip a beat really after the LeBron years. I think they missed the playoffs a couple times, but they were still making the playoffs, scratching and scratching, and now they added Butler, and it elevated them. I think that says a lot about Spoelstra, and Pat Riley trusted him enough throughout those years. He never fired him, even when they missed the playoffs, even when they got bounced first round. He never fired him.
I found this one thing that was really interesting. I don't remember where I read it from, but it was their poster article about how LeBron tried to get Spoelstra fired.
Yeah.
Really early on.
Yeah.
When he started playing with the Heat. And
do you know what Riley did?
He kept him and basically told LeBron that we're not doing this. Don't ever do this again.
He walked in the locker room and he said, "This coach is not getting fired, and if you want him to, you can fuck off." He walked in the locker room and said it to all of them.
And then they went on a run where they won 35 of their next 38 games or something crazy like that.
And think about this, Spoelstra is the only coach to survive LeBron.
Yeah.
Every coach LeBron has been with ends up getting fired.
I forget who it was in Cleveland before.
It was Mike Brown.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And he was gone within, and I didn't think he deserved that at all.
Neither did I. I think he was better than what was expected. And then, you think about once he went to Cleveland, David Blatt fired mid-year, and then they got Tyronn Lue and won the championship.
But that was the Blatt one I remember vividly, because Tyronn Lue had done nothing in the NBA, and I still don't think he did anything. The only thing that Tyronn Lue did with Cleveland is let LeBron run the team the way that LeBron wanted to run it.
Yeah,
that was the only change.
And he still ended up getting fired.
Shut the fuck up though in Game 7.
Oh yeah, I remember.
And that was his one moment the entire half of the season. Now you can say that was a great moment because it helped them win, but for the most part, I felt like that he would just look at LeBron and be like, "You know what you're doing. I'm not going to do anything to help you."
Yeah, and he didn't when it mattered most.
And he did that. But what has Tyronn Lue done? That was the one moment where Tyronn Lue, I feel actually showed up for anything. Besides getting stepped on over Iverson. Those are the only two moments that I remember about Tyronn Lue in the postseason.
Yeah. That's so true. And dude, Tyronn Lue kissed his ass and still ended up getting fired. It's LeBron has run through so many coaches, but
Frank Vogel.
I mean,
Yeah,
at least
gone.
he wins, though.
No, he
Like,
does.
he
so
could be like
I'm
Trey
not,
Young and like just not get
yeah,
anywhere.
I'm not blaming
his
him. It's
coaches.
just I think
No.
it says something about Spoelstra because a
It does.
lot of great coaches have
Yeah.
been let go. You know.
No, and I think that's the whole thing is that he sort of knows the players that he's around. Even as a young coach,
Yeah.
he sort of, I feel like, felt the temperament of his players. And when things went that badly that first year with the Heat, he turned things around immediately.
Yeah.
And you can say that's because Pat Riley went into the locker room, but that still was on Spoelstra to change things.
Yeah.
So I'm sure Riley was also putting pressure on him as well.
Yeah.
Even though that won't become public. I'm sure Pat Riley was also not happy hearing that LeBron was saying this
Yeah.
already. That meant that there were some issues.
Yeah.
So for Spoelstra to not walk away as a young coach and say, "Oh my gosh, one of the best players ever doesn't want to play for me. What am I doing here?" He flipped it. The Heat won 2 out of the next 4 championships, made it 4 straight.
Yeah. Right.
Like that says a lot about him.
Yeah.
When you look at that bubble run, look, everyone talks about how easy the bubble was. Think about trying to keep all those players in check mentally.
Yeah.
When you're in a situation like that.
And we saw a lot of players like ended up slipping
Yeah.
up and going outside. So like,
Yeah.
it says
I
a
don't
lot
feel
about
like
it.
that ever happened with the Heat. I
Yeah,
never
no,
remember
no.
one story about someone getting out of the bubble.
The only one was
Yeah, they-
Butler with
Yeah.
Rachel Nichols, but it was like in
Yeah.
the hotel.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was just the fact that she was going in
Right.
to his hotel room.
So
And it didn't become public.
no. And that's the whole thing. Like the Heat do a very good things keeping things in-house. Like this LeBron thing. We didn't hear about this for years
Yeah.
since then. That's all Pat Riley keeping things in-house.
Yeah.
Spoelstra doing the same thing.
Hmm.
And he keeps all the players in check as well.
Yeah.
Like that one, the motivational movie that nobody talked about what it was.
Yeah.
That's sort of like as funny as it is to
Yeah.
talk about, that just shows how much the Heat keep things in-house.
Yeah.
And that's a reason why that culture is so good, because they all trust each other to do their thing.
Right.
Don't let any of the public noise get to you.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why they're an 8 seed playing in the NBA Finals.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's what they've been to 2 of the 3.
Yeah.
2 out of the 3 last championships or something like that. And like I said before, he has survived all of it.
Right.
He had downs, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't always pretty.
Oh, yeah, no.
But like Pat Riley trusted him enough, like
Yeah.
you said, and that says a lot. And
Yeah.
I think that's why people should be waiting for this final stand to pick off the tree.
Yeah,
Like, try and learn
I
these
still,
assistants.
the thing for me, even watching this, I just don't trust the Heat because their star player, Jimmy Butler, is not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Where Jokic, yeah, he had the 5 turnovers, but he
But,
still
yeah.
had 2 dominant games.
On great efficiency.
Right, and I don't expect Denver to just lay down and die.
Yeah.
And I feel like they're going to find a way to change things up on their offense so that it's not just going all the way through Jokic
yeah.
and not relying on Jokic to pass the ball out.
Yeah.
And I think at that point, the series is just going to switch immediately.
Yeah.
Now, look, could it go to 7 games now? I could definitely see that. I still think it's going in 6.
So I picked Heat in 7, and nothing has really changed me that much. But you're right. Like I think that the Nuggets are going to give the Heat the best punch that they've gotten this playoffs, like without a doubt, you know, because obviously Milwaukee missed Giannis for a couple games.
Yeah.
The Knicks aren't really a real threat ever.
Right.
And then the Celtics, they punched back, but
Yeah,
I
they
think
did.
it's not going to be as hard as the Nuggets come back.
So I've got a quick question to you, and then we can talk about something else. Jack, you can jump in as well. But I'm just curious, do you think the Heat probably played one of their best games that they could play in the series in Game 2?
No,
No.
You don't?
no.
Because Butler didn't do what he's supposed to do. And
That's
I
fair.
trust Butler I think Butler's going to have some great games in this
That's true.
final series.
Yeah, they are resilient. I think they can match this performance like for the rest of the games. of
I
the
think they can play
series.
better too, but I think
Yeah.
the Nuggets can play better than they did in game 1 even too.
And even like I don't even think Jimmy Butler like he needs to like take over this series.
I
you know?
agree. I agree with
Like
that.
I think
They showed that.
yeah, like I think he could go on spurts, but like the other guys, especially Bam, if Bam keeps playing the way he's been playing, like does Jimmy need to do like that much if Bam and the role players are
Right.
playing like they did in game 2?
that's true.
Right. And
Like-
like if Jokic put up 40 too and Butler didn't do what he's supposed to do. Like imagine if Butler is Butler and then the role players like you said play the way they do.
Yeah.
And Jokic is putting up 40 and you're not getting any production from your bench, like then what's it gonna be like, you know, especially in a Heat crowd. Like the Heat have one of the best home playoff records, I feel like of all time. You know what I mean?
Yeah, their
I don't
crowd
actually
sucks,
know the
though.
numbers, but it's like it feels like the Heat always win at home. And I'm probably gonna jinx them, but like that's just the feeling like all the way back to when Wade started before LeBron. Like, I just feel like they've always had the home win. And I know they've had a couple tough losses, like you think back to like Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavs, but so it can happen. I don't know. I just trust the Heat at home.
Yeah, I do think it is a big deal that they took one in Denver.
Right.
I think that is something that's not being talked a lot about just because there's been so many other storylines. But the fact they did steal one in Denver, I think, is very, very big for them.
Yeah. Oh, wait, and one more quick thing, too. Yeah. This series is proving those haters wrong before the series, saying this was going to be boring.
Oh, yeah.
This is phenomenal basketball.
Yeah,
like, this is basketball at its
said
peak,
this is
I
gonna
feel.
be boring.
Yeah. I think these are the two most fun teams to watch.
Oh, yeah.
I think we got the best matchup.
Yeah. I will say game one, I did turn it off at like the middle of the third quarter just because it was such a blowout. So I am glad that the Heat came back and actually made it a fun game to watch, and now are turning it into a more interesting series.
Yeah.
Because I feel like sort of the way that the hockey playoffs have gone, or the finals at least, that had the Nuggets gone up 2-0, I feel like the series would have been done. With Vegas up 2-0, I don't really... The only reason I'm going to watch now is because I want to watch Keith Jones announce one more game because he's the Flyers general manager. But that's it. Yeah. Like, now that Vegas totally dominated the first two games, I don't see the Panthers coming back.
Yeah.
With the Heat, now that they even that series, I do think that this will be way more competitive than I was thinking it was going to be after game one.
Agreed. I think that the Stanley Cup is over, too.
Yeah.
Like, I don't see... And especially after two blowouts. Like,
Bob Vlasky has, like, out of his mind in order for the Panthers to win.
Yeah.
Vegas' goalie just has to, like, kind of show up and make, like, 5 stops in their 5.
Yeah.
You guys want to talk baseball a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So... You want to talk about the article you sent?
Yeah, so I found a couple of interesting articles, but the one I found today was from Insider. And it brought up a couple of really interesting points about how the season has gone. So I would say about almost 3 months ago now, we talked about at the beginning of the new rule changes in spring training about how everything was going to shape up. We were all in favor of it. There was a lot of people at the time that were sort of mixed.
Yeah.
I would say the results now have been largely positive.
Yes.
The amount of playing time has gone down from 3 hours, 5 minutes to 2:36.
Yeah.
Which is a great improvement. A lot of the 1-0 games have been significantly shortened, which is, to me, I love 1-0 pitching duels. I don't need them to go 3.5 hours.
Yes. Agreed.
So for them to now be down to like 2:30, I'm a little bit under that too. I'm totally fine with that. If there's only been 6 games that are under 2 hours, I think that's fine. It hasn't been a drastic amount. It's way more than it was. But at this point in the season, there was 92 games over 3 hours.
Yeah.
Like, that's just way too much.
Yeah, right. And like what the article talked about too with the fan attendance going up. I mean, I don't know if that's necessarily a direct thing for the pitch clock, but I think it's a huge part of it. Like, I really do. I will believe that until someone proves me otherwise, to be honest with you. I think it's because of the pitch clock. I think it's because it's more fun to show up. I think because when there's a 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock game, you're going home at a reasonable time and waking up for work the next morning refreshed, pretty much. Because let's be real, if you went to a 7:05 Phillies game on a weekday with work the next morning, you weren't getting home until like 12:30 at 1 a.m. And dude, it's not a primetime football game.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's what I think drove attendance down for so long. You know, the games were just drug out. You know what I mean? Like you said, with, what was it, 92 games above 3:30 or something?
Something like that.
Yeah. It's like, why would someone want to pay to watch
Not for a regular season Kansas City, Minnesota game.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to watch two mid-teams play a 3.5 hour game.
Yeah.
Now, if it's Dodgers-Yankees on Sunday night, I'd be okay with it.
Right.
But the issue is you can't predict things like that in baseball.
Yeah. Because a lot of the times they schedule these Sunday night matchups and it's a bad team.
Right.
Because, like, they kind of screwed up or, like, the team underperforms or whatever.
And even then, you're only going to a few primetime games.
Yeah.
It's like one Sunday night, and the rest of them are scheduled the way they are.
Yeah, but look at the Phillies this year. Like, they have been high up in attendance, and it's like every single night. Like,
and I've noticed a lot of other teams have been really high in attendance that have been good. Like the Red Sox attendance.
Yeah.
And obviously the Red Sox, because of Fenway, will still get high. But I've noticed a couple other teams that are higher.
Yeah, Cleveland has been higher.
Even Kansas City, up to this point, it's like 4,000 more, and Kansas City's way worse than they were last year.
Yeah, and like, I think that the MLB actually has a lot of large like dedicated fan bases now. Like I'm gonna run through some cities: Philly, Atlanta, New York Mets, New York Yankees, Red Sox, Cubs always do well. San Diego's new. Like their fans are showing up by the bunches now. LA Dodgers, Seattle has been doing really well. Texas Rangers have been doing great right now because the team is great and the ballpark is beautiful.
Right.
Houston. Like, you can run through a lot of teams who have been doing so well in attendance.
And it felt like for a while that there was only about 10 to 12 cities that had passionate fans.
Right.
And the rest of them would kind of show up.
Yeah.
And now I feel like that's totally changed. Now, again, if you're a bad team like Oakland, you're not going to have people show up. No. Like, and I feel like that's...
And they're protesting their owners.
Right, exactly. You have to.
Yeah.
I mean, Oakland basically said we're leaving, although I did read something interesting today about that, where Nevada's state legislation only meets for 4 months biannually, so they only meet for 4 months every 2 years.
Yeah.
They just went on a break. So unless the governor calls them back in for a special session, they're not going to be voting on this till 2025.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh,
and their lease runs out, I believe, at the end of next year in Oakland. So they would be without a stadium for 2 years. Until
I wonder what they would do. They'd figure out something. That's the whole thing.
They've kind of screwed themselves by announcing they're leaving so early without setting a plan in place.
Yeah, right.
So I don't know what they're going to do, but I don't feel any sympathy for ownership. I feel bad for the fans.
I feel terrible.
Because now they're basically leaving and you don't really know where this team's going to be played.
Yeah.
Like, maybe they'll move to Portland for, I don't know what they can do.
Yeah.
I really don't.
You do what the Raptors did and just play in Tampa.
And that's what I'm saying, though. Yeah. Portland makes sense because they're an expansion team, so maybe they could build the stadium now, and that way when Oakland leaves for Vegas, if that's what happens, they could, say, hey, we supported this team. I mean, that's not, something that hasn't happened before.
Yeah.
That's what happened to Kansas City when the A's actually first moved there.
Yeah.
And then moved Kansas City and said, hey, look what we did for the Athletics. We think we should get our own team. And that's when the Royals went in.
Yeah.
So it's not too weird for me to think that could happen. It just hasn't really happened in modern history.
I would like to see that. I would like to see it.
And I think Portland is ready, or Salt Lake, or any of these other cities that have been brought up as proposed places where expansion could happen. Because that is something that baseball's talked about a lot, is planning expansion. I mean, you haven't seen it in the NFL recently, but they're already at 32 teams. It's sort of... The NFL is also different. You need a very, very big market.
Yeah.
Baseball's a lot like basketball. You don't need a huge market for support.
Right. So
I think it does make sense to look at Portland, Nashville, these growing cities that could support a baseball.
I think Nashville's a great spot, too. And I think that if they're going to...
You were just in Nashville.
Yeah, right. And they actually support their teams a lot down there. I think it's more of a party city, but they still support teams, The
soccer team's done great.
Right.
Nashville FC has seemed to do very, very well down there.
The Predators have always done pretty well for, a smaller market. And then the Titans, they always do well in attendance. And I mean, football is football, but, they still always do well. Yeah, I would like to see that. And especially if you're going to add a team on the West, add one on the East, I like that idea. And maybe do some division realignment.
Yeah, so I do think it would make sense for one of these places to build a stadium part-time just to host them. Because, again, you could have the chance of actually having them move there.
Yeah.
If this Vegas thing doesn't work out. Yeah. But going back to the original point, it is great to see attendance going up in all of these places.
Right.
And I do think that it does have the correlation with a shortened time.
Right, I agree.
I think a lot of people also think about that. I also think that the new rule changes have helped a lot. This is going back to some of them last year. Full-time DH? It's done wonders for baseball.
Right.
I'm so glad we're not seeing pitchers a lot. And I think it's also fans are able to get excited because even if your team's struggling right now at around 500, they have a chance of making that 6th wild card spot.
Yeah, agreed.
And what we saw with the Phillies last year, you make that 6th spot, you have a chance of making it to the World Series.
Right.
So I think a lot of baseball fans are now feeling like their team, even at this point in the season, if they're under 500, still have a chance. Where before it was like, we're at 500, but chances are we're going to be sellers by this point. Where now you don't really know what your team's going to do at this point in June. And even into July. If your team's around 500, you don't have to just automatically be a seller.
Yeah.
You could be a buyer and make it into the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. And I think going back to the rule changes too, another thing that has helped the game so much is ban of the shift, honestly. We've seen average has been up around the league and balls in play have been up. So I think that's what the MLB was aiming for too, was more action, less home run or strikeout, that kind of thing.
And the guy that's really been leading this thing all the way through is Luis Arraez.
Oh my gosh.
Luis Arraez got 2 more hits tonight, which means his batting average is now at 401.
Wow, I didn't even see that. Oh my gosh.
I never thought in my lifetime I would see a hitter get above 400 at this point.
Was it Chipper Jones did it in the 90s? I think that's what I saw.
Chipper Jones did it. There was a couple players in the early 2000s that got close. I think
Todd
Moody was one of them. Helton was. But
Manny Ramirez was there too.
No one believed, with the way baseball had been going the last 5 years, that batting averages would go up the way that they have, or that anyone would be doing this.
Yes, right. And I mean, those are just video game numbers, literally. Like, that's what I do in MLB The Show, is hit like 409 at this point in the season, and it's like insane.
No.
And the fact that Luis Arraez is doing it right now, I pray he keeps this up, because I would love to see like a Marlins Braves playoff series, because technically the Phillies, Marlins, and Braves could all make it.
Yeah, it's interesting because the Marlins offense, they don't have a lot of big power pieces.
Yeah.
Maurice Soler, kind of.
Yeah.
But besides him, they don't really have that guy that can be like, oh, this guy's going to hit a home run. But they just keep chugging along. And even without Contra struggling.
Yeah, right.
The fact
he's
that
not
they're
been
still
pitching that well.
Playing this well is really good for them.
Well, who's that rookie's? What's his name? They just called him up for this season.
Yeah, I forget his name, but he had a really solid start.
He's doing really well right now. He's kind of picking up Alcantara's slack, which is really surprising.
Yeah.
And they've been it's Yuri Perez, I think.
Oh,
I think that's what his name. He's been pitching really, really, really well. He's been picking up the slack. It's kind of cool to see them with this record. And if you remember, we can go back into the archives to our MLB season predictions, and I predicted the Marlins.
You did.
Really
and
well.
I predicted the Orioles.
They're
playing way better than anyone thought.
I know, yeah.
So I was going to touch on that because...
Yeah, actually, I want to talk about the Orioles, too.
Well, the Orioles have been playing... Aldi Rushman has been
really
ridiculous.
Good. Yeah.
I said that one of the things that would need to happen is Kyle Gibson needed to pitch better. He's really done that for them. And again, they still don't have John Zine back until July.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're playing this well without him is very, very good news. Cedric Mullins is playing really well as well.
Superstar level, pretty much. I mean, the glove, too, has been insane. He's made a lot of, highlight plays.
And the interesting thing about the Orioles, they also don't really have a power hitter. Rushman does what he can, but that stadium now, it's almost impossible to hit a home run to left field.
Yeah.
So you really just have to rely on old school baseball to win.
I know, yeah. And I think that's actually, proving to be a good formula in the MLB now. Sometimes, you know how sometimes people say that a home run is a rally killer, because it clears the bases and everything. And it's I think some teams that just go for home runs, I think they start to struggle at times. And I think you see that with the Phillies.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's the one team that comes to mind almost immediately. It's a team that was trying to hit home runs, I think, way too often.
But I think what the Orioles are doing leads to more consistent offense, which is good.
And it's the same thing that the Rangers have done.
Yep.
Because their best hitter is Simeon.
Yeah, and Heim gives you some power, but again, it's kind of like Rutschman.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Where, I think that you're seeing a lot of these old school guys step up this year. Yeah. I mean, you still have guys like Pete Alonso and Aaron Judge, who... this is just breaking news that I'm seeing now watching the Mariners game, but apparently Judge is going to IL with a contusion and toe sprain, which that's really bad news for the Yankees and also just for baseball in general. And that comes on the heels of DeGrom being out now too.
Yeah.
Probably maybe some point next year, but my guess is he's probably not coming back till 2025.
I agree. They said he's getting Tommy John today. Yeah, I don't see him coming back until next year. That's pretty obvious, I feel like, with a pitcher. You know, Tommy John it's not even late in the year, but it is.
I mean, the earliest he can come back is July, and I just don't.
I don't see that.
I don't think they want to rush him back at this point in his career, because if he does get hurt again, then he's probably done.
Right.
Where I think you do wait until 2025, unfortunately.
Agreed. Yeah.
And just hope that he can be that next pitcher, sort of like what Verlander did, where he sat out for a year and a half.
Yeah, and
that pitcher again.
Yeah, and DeGrom is on the older side, obviously, but he's not crippling. You know what I'm saying? I know he's dealt with injury, but I still think a guy like him can get healthy for a season, give you good numbers. Maybe not as elite as it used to be, but great numbers, like sub threes, 2.8, 2.9. And that you take that every single day from a number one. I think that DeGrom can get back to that level. I feel for him because he's just dealt with so many injuries and he's such a great pitcher.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty crazy. He hasn't reached 100 innings in the last 4 years.
Yeah.
But his ERA every time he's pitched, even 50 to 60 innings, has been under 3. It's like 250 to 150. Like, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
The one team we haven't touched on yet is the best team in baseball. I was not expecting this from the Rays.
Yeah, not coming into the year, but I mean, now that you're seeing it, it's like, it's expected now, you know what I mean? Because they've been playing like that hot for this consistently, this long. It's crazy. And I think that I feel like now they're the World Series favorite. Like, you have to get it done. I think that you've been clearly the best team.
Yeah.
You've beaten some of the best teams. Like, they beat the Rangers, they beat the Astros.
Right. It's not like when they played the first 4 series and we're 12-0 and everyone's like, oh, you didn't play anyone because you played like the Nationals.
Yeah.
And I think it was the Tigers.
Uh-huh.
Now they've played, like you said, Rangers, Yankees, Orioles, and they're still have less than 20 losses.
And the AL East is by far the best division in baseball right now. I think, isn't last place not
It was
below
the
500?
Red Sox. I think they might be now, so they were winning today. So I think they might be 31 and 30.
Hold on, let me check it. They're 30 and 30. Yeah. So, I mean, they're not even going to be below 500.
Right.
Like, that's just incredible.
Yeah.
You know, and especially when you look at some of these other
I'm going to say, as a White Sox fan, I feel bad for the
100%
Red Sox because they're at 500 and in last.
Yeah.
And there's no team in the Central that's like above 500.
Yeah, right.
And whoever wins that division is making it. I mean, I do think it's the same issue I've had with the White Sox the last couple of years is that they have the talent to put it together. And I just feel like they watch them and they can't do it for whatever reason.
Uh-huh.
But if you go on a decent run, any of these teams, I mean, the Tigers have lost 5 straight, so I think that they're coming back down to earth from the start they had. Cleveland getting McKenzie back, that's going to help a lot. But I think the White Sox are the most talented roster out of this entire division.
I agree.
And I think that if they can get it together, I mean, they beat the Yankees tonight, which is huge.
Mm-hmm.
And with the Yankees without Judge, it's just not the same team.
Yeah, right.
So to me, I think they should sweep this series and get back on track.
Yeah, right.
Well, obviously, we don't know the extent of this Judge injury since it literally just happened. The Yankees without Judge for any extended time. It's just not good news with the way the Orioles and Rays have been playing.
No, and obviously we don't even know right now how long necessarily. You know, contusion and toe sprain does not sound good. And like, you're completely right. I mean, they are an insanely weak offense without Aaron Judge, to be honest with you. There's just not very reliable production outside of him. Like, I think Volpe has been okay.
Yeah. Okay. And that's what I was going to say is that Volpe now has to really step up.
Yeah. And I saw Donaldson has 3 home runs in 3 games since coming off IL. So maybe.
Donaldson sort of at that spark, but again, he's not at the point in his career where he can lead offense the way that Judge can.
And I don't think Stanton is there either, honestly, because that's probably your second best hitter.
You also have to trust Stanton to stay healthy.
Yeah, right. And he's been a guy, again, struggled a little bit in some years to stay healthy. So,
and again, the Yankees aren't playing bad per se.
Right.
They're still 10 or 9 games over 500.
Yeah.
The issue with the way that the other teams are playing in their division.
Yeah.
They're going to have to find a way to stay on par with them without Judge, and I just don't know if they can do that, even for a 10-game stretch.
Yeah, agreed. And like, they're going to have to really rely on their pitching, and I already saw Nestor Cortez is missing time right now, and he wasn't even pitching that well.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole, he got lit up by someone, the Rays, I think.
Yeah.
If he's not going to pitch well against the best teams, then you're going to struggle right now. And like you were saying, like, their division is so good.
I mean, they are lucky that they now don't have to play the Rays 20 times a year.
Yeah.
Because they're doing a balanced schedule, so that means they'll get to play some of these weaker teams.
Yeah.
But I know in a couple of weeks they have the Rangers coming up.
Yeah.
Which that's going to be, like, the series that they have coming up, it's not easy from my memory.
No.
So either way, they're going to have to find a way to get together. Like, the White Sox were supposed to be one of their easier opponents.
Yeah.
And now the White Sox have been playing better baseball as of recently. Granted, it was against the Tigers, but they now won, I think, 4 straight. Mm-hmm. So the Yankees have to find a way to get together without Judge, and it's going to be tough for them.
It's going to be really tough. Like you were saying, their schedule does not get any easier. And in a division like that, and I know that the schedule changes now have like lowered the number of division games that you're going to get, but it's still, you don't have someone that you can beat up on.
No.
That's the thing that a lot of teams rely on, is like they have a bottom feeder that they just destroy.
Right. So like, even though the Phillies didn't play the Nationals 20 times, still playing them when they did this past weekend, it helped a lot to get things back on track a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, they still have to play more consistent baseball, but now they've won 4 straight because they got to play, or 3 straight because they got to play the Nationals.
Yeah, and I think it says something about the Rays that they're playing this well with the division. But Yeah, like you were saying, so they play the Red Sox at home this coming weekend, and then they go to the Mets, which is going to be a tough series for them. And it's like, that series is like, like a high school rivalry.
Right. And that's just saying, playing two rivalries, the way that you're playing the Red Sox and Mets back to back.
I was going to say CB East, CB West, you know what I mean? It's kind of that.
Pretty much, but there's that emotion that goes into it, and without Judge, you're missing that core piece for two huge rivalry games.
Right. And then after that, you go to Boston.
Yeah.
And then the Mariners come, which is not an easy team.
No.
Then, like you said, the Rangers. And then you finally get a breath of fresh air going to Oakland.
Yeah.
So
they're going to have to find a way to play around 500 baseball without Judge.
Yeah. And I mean, like, I'm just looking, like, St. Louis is not easy. Baltimore is not easy.
No, I mean, the thing is, if you can beat up on Oakland, I think you can get things on track with St. Louis. Because, St. Louis isn't easy, but they've also been playing really bad baseball this year.
Yeah.
Like, I think the issue that we have as baseball fans, we want the Cardinals to be the team that we've thought about that they've been the last decade or so, and they're just not that.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think they're going to get worse with the guy that I don't know if you saw that the Reds called up,
Ellie De La Cruz.
Yeah. That dude is a stud.
Yeah, and did you see his double today?
Yes.
Just roped.
The double, and even after the walk when he got on second, he almost passed the runner ahead of him.
Yeah.
Like, this dude's 6'5",
they beat the Dodgers, too.
Switch hitter.
Yeah.
I mean, that dude's scary.
Yeah, I'm going to look at his stats right now because I'm looking on Bleacher Report, and it says they came back from down 8-3 to win. He was 1 for 3.
Yeah.
He walked twice, like you said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm ready for this guy. I told Jack earlier. In the day when he got called up, I said, just wait for him.
Yeah.
Like he's.
I mean, even his walk, the first walk, he was down 1-2, swung at a couple bad pitches, and then, unlike a lot of hitters that I see when they go down 1-2, there was a couple of their junk pitches, he totally held up and got that walk.
Yeah.
Like, he had a veteran presence in his first major league at bat that I don't see a lot of guys.
Yeah, and like, that's what I like about Bryson Stott. Me and my dad talk about that all the time. Is like he works counts. Yeah. Like he's a major league.
Sometimes you just need to do like you might not have the best stats, highest batting average or whatever, but if you can work a count, that means so much more than anything that shows up on the stat.
And actually, like that's why I'm not freaking out about Kyle Schwarber right now. Is because his on base percentage is so high, and like he works walks, but like. The problem is, like, 180 is terrible.
It's really bad.
It's really
but
terrible.
also, he's hitting enough home runs that, like, kind of...
that's
if he can get above 200 the way that he did last year, like, it's acceptable, kind of.
We'll see at the end of the month.
Right.
Too,
well, that's the whole thing. I think this is a good place to wrap up because it is June, and I feel like it's hard not to talk about June without talking about how well the Phillies play in this month for whatever reason. The first 2 months of them are always terrible.
Yeah.
And then June rolls around, they just look like a totally different ball team.
Yeah.
Every single year. It's almost uncanny. And it goes with guys like Schwarber heating up at this point.
Yeah.
I feel like Nola looks like a much better pitcher in this month than early in the season. Same with Wheeler.
Yep.
And I feel like that this is the turning point for Turner now that he's hit 2 home runs in one night. This feels like his turning point. It could be at least.
Mm-hmm.
Castellanos has just been electric all season.
Yeah, he's been having a great year.
But these guys that they called up, like Drew Ellis, like why would you expect this guy to hit 2 home runs in a game?
And even like Bohm, Marsh, Stott, like you're getting good production out of them.
And that's the other thing.
Hurt?
Yeah, Bohm is hurt right now.
But I think he's going to be activated on Friday.
Yeah.
Friday.
So it's not like a long injury. But the fact they're playing this well without him, that's a good sign. Power's not there, and that worries me with his injury.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he's still not 100%, and the Phillies can never say that because I feel like they do need him.
And he's still hitting 300.
I know. But that's the thing. Like,
it's like crazy.
And I think
I agree with you too.
There is a couple hits that he's had recently where they looked almost like home runs. And I feel like had he been 100% healthy, they would have been.
Yeah.
And again, it's not like a huge concern because they were the deepest part of the ballpark, and if you're playing in some of these other stadiums, they are home runs.
Right.
But it is just a little bit concerning to see the other night when he sort of was holding his arm.
Yeah, I was scared.
Yeah. And I think it's just he was overworked trying to throw the ball.
Uh-huh.
But to me, they need to get things going this month because the Mets are still at 500. The Marlins have been playing great against some bad teams like the Royals. Yeah. But that still makes the record better. And the Braves, they're still 10 games above 500.
The Braves, yeah.
So you need to get to 500 and even a little bit above that.
Yeah.
By the end of this, I would say by the end of this stuff, you need to be at least 4 to 5 games over 500 to feel comfortable.
Agreed. And like, to your point too, the Phillies are only like 4.5 out of the wild card. Right. I think it's 4 now.
Yeah.
And you're not in a position of panic at all.
And you
just need to get on track.
Right. But the issue is they need to be consistent because some of these other wild card teams, like The Diamondbacks
Yeah,
have
they're
probably
looking
the
good.
Cy Young Award winner, in my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. For right now, yeah.
So you have to worry about the Diamondbacks. The Pirates are streaky, but they've been more consistent than the Phillies have been.
Yeah.
And I forget who the Marlins are, that other wildcard team. The Phillies never play well against the Marlins in Miami.
No.
So you need things to get on track. You don't need to panic, but you need to do it sooner rather than later. And it has been going well, but again, it's just been the Nationals and Tigers. You need to do it against higher level teams before I can say they're confidently back.
Yeah, we need Wheeler and Noah because Wheeler looked bad against Washington, but I still think building off that 8 innings against the Braves is huge.
So I think that'll do it for this week. In conclusion, the Phillies love Pride Month, and we'll leave it there. We'll catch you next Saturday.